Okay, so we got felt on all of these, or most of them for the most part, and that's given us this really excellent, tough substrate layer that I'm comfortable will go even if we re-skin these or put different texture on them and paint them differently in the future. That's what I wanted here, because now this is a unit that's an investment that we can kind of plan on not falling apart. When it comes to the paper, we have that cheap, thin stuff. We've got this ultra thick stuff we looked at early in the series. The settle on this is more like construction paper. It's a little fragile, but what I've done here is I've made a place to work with the tarp, so the glue and the sticky stuff, isn't gonna be here for forever. I've laid the tree down, obviously, and then I can pull paper a little bit further than this end, roll it out a little bit longer than that end, cut it, and I know I have a piece that'll do, obviously, the whole height of the tree, but then how to get it to roll up the hot dog way, because what I ended up doing over here was I basically just carefully tried to wad it up, and I applied this first, and it's cool and it's interesting, and it'll probably, it would satisfy most people, but I'm not that satisfied with it. There's a lot of tree bark stuff going on here, but there are some other horizontal folds and some zigzags and stuff that aren't exactly what I want to see. I want to see more of that like Scotch pine, heavy vertical lines. So what I decided to do is roll this stuff up like I say, hot dog style. It kind of helps to have a piece of pipe or tubing or whatever if you don't have a friend to help you. You can kind of start on this down here, start down there, get it just rolling around, roll it all up into a tube like this, and then I've been letting that kind of fall out the end of it. Then I'm flattening it. So right to start with, I've got a bunch of folds now that are definitely vertical. Oops, you want to be careful of that. But they're not perfect. They're pretty uniform. This may taper and get a bit wider, so we're trying to make something organic, so don't overthink it. This is pretty good here. So I get that all flattened like that. Then I'm turning it either over on itself or back. I'm folding it again. Again, kind of uniform, also being kind of loose. The looseness will look good, and it'll also keep you moving instead of sitting here spending all day kind of doing that, right? We want to move right along. Also, this is Paper Cut City, this project, so when you're sliding up and down folding this heavy paper, you may want to put leather gloves on or something potentially. So I get this all folded in half the one way. It's nice to have a support surface like the ground in this case, or a nice big workbench would be sweet, but mine is tied up right now with other stuff. So we'll get them all folded in half in one direction. Put that band. And then I've been folding that in half one more time. Or maybe I don't this time, or maybe I do, but basically work down to a consistent width, sort of, crinkling it as you go. And I'm just looking to establish these long body lines that are vertical, because it's going to help the whole tree come together as one thing, rather than a big rolling cylinder with a bunch of wrinkle paper on it, which is what it can look like if you're not careful. I'm also kind of grouping and squeezing this like that. Work my way back the other direction. And it's fragile, so I want to move quickly and create a lot of geometry, but I also don't want to tear it all up in pieces. Now I'm going to try and open this up and lay it flat. And the danger with this is if I'm pulling it like this too much, I'm contributing this big kind of horizontal line. So while I want to get it to open up, I don't want to overdo it. Obviously, you can fix that, but again, just being conscious of what we're trying to create and not working against ourselves. So at this point, I've been gathering it again, using those folds now to help me gather it and accordion it. But who knows which direction. Again, trying to avoid horizontal stuff, grouping it, squishing it, grouping it, squishing it, grouping it, moving it along organically, trying to see a transformation between what looks like kind of straight folds to what looks like more of a crinkle, and still in cross section trying to get it to zigzag for the most part. Not perfectly, but slightly. So that's going to create those lows and highs that sort of squiggle their way down the trunk in the right orientation. And it takes some hand strength, so this may be a job for somebody who can do this part, and then the next step, maybe that's somebody else. But either way, maybe you take a break to do this a little bit and then do something else for a while. There's really no other way unless you have some kind of bark making paper device that I don't have. So we'll lay it back out again. Again, when I'm pulling it, I'm putting these areas in. I want to get those out of there. Once I got this thing laying flat, and I also want to get my edges, keep them from getting a fold or two in them, because as I'm applying spray glue here, if they're rolled up and I get all done trying to put it down, then I've got to go back and add spray glue to all my edges before they'll sit down because I didn't get it when they're down here. So, teasing those out. We're also not trying to flatten it so much that we lose all of that nice dimension. So you can see me rustling it up now, a little bit, shaking these areas out of it, keeping those edges kind of flipped out so they'll get some glue on them. So now I've kind of got it ready to get glued up. We used Super 77 over there, which you'll notice if you use that. It's nice and sticky, but it's like an invisible film, and it's not really, it doesn't have a lot of body, and it's not really aggressive. It's very sticky, but it doesn't build up and stand away from the surfaces. So you need surfaces to completely touch before they've stuck, where this is more like boogers, Super 90, and so you put some sticky boogers on the tree, some sticky boogers on the paper, and then sooner than those pieces come together, those boogers are sticking to one another. It's just a bit of putting our best foot forward here. So you've also got a choice on top of the can for a lot of spray glues for a small, medium, high, like fan. So I think the H is high, so we'll turn the nozzle over to H, and we'll just make sure that we're getting a 4, 5, 6 inch wide fan of glue, which you can probably see best over here. So that's a narrow, so I had it backwards, it's over here. Maybe not, it just takes a minute sometimes to get it to, there it is. See, we got a nice big wide fan coming out now. So we'll load these areas up, and spray glue is a contact cement, so you get it on there, and it isn't as sticky right now as it will be in a minute after the solvent dries up. So you just get some onto this, and get some onto the back of the paper. Now I'm applying it to this because this is a little less, or most of these tubes are a little bit shiny and slippery, and so it's not going to pull as much of the solvent out of this glue and dry it as fast as when I put glue on that paper. So when you're working with glue in big surface areas and stuff like this, the first thing I put glue on is normally something that I either want to head start the glue drying, or that's going to retard the glue's drying a little bit to give me time to get the other thing glued, and then be thinking like that. Don't miss an opportunity to be wise, I guess. Or maybe you do part of this and then get it stuck and then do the rest. What I was finding is, since this piece lays on here the full width, if I'm gluing a piece of it, then I have to flip it up and apply glue to the bottom and the rest of this. Then I'm getting folds and stuff right there. I didn't like that. So maybe you do it in 2 pieces if you can't. I'm used to doing this and moving right along type of thing, so I can stay on top of it to a certain extent. If you're uncomfortable rushing, then just make the project that you're trying to achieve a little smaller and work in pieces, right? So we'll come back here, put some glue on all this stuff. And you should probably have a respirator on if you, I can't wear a respirator and talk to you. but normally I'm working outside on something like this if it's nice weather, or I'll put a respirator on and run a fan. You also want to keep shaking it up, because if you're not careful, you'll blow all this accelerant out and you'll have a fair amount of glue left in the can, so don't wait until it's giving you problems to do this. Try to remember to periodically shake. And we'll just flip this bad boy up onto here. Go down this way. Let's try to see if we're in the center or roundabout on where we need it. And then start in the top and work my way out to the side. Careful. Pick it up and set it back down a little bit if I'm careful. Try not to spread it out, because we're looking for that dimension. Now run out of length, so be careful of that. As you consume it on your way down the line, you can run out of what you need. What, did I cut this a little too short? Okay. This is kind of where I want it. See, those edges are still not all that tacky, so that's why I say you want to pay special kind of attention to trying to get some glue on those. So we're going to come back and add a little bit of adhesive. I'm also going to staple some of these low areas to give it a mechanical bit of attachment. Lose these seams in here. Too big of an area, be smooth and flat, because that's not interesting. Finish up this area here with, and I won't immediately stick that down. I'll be spraying glue. This seam down in, trying to get it, more importantly, blending that right into the other piece of paper, because that's a weird edge that you don't ever want to have to see here. And then we're going to be spraying paint and stuff, so I don't want to get behind something like that. I didn't realize it wasn't stuck, and then spraying the paint, I'm blowing it back and any of that. So I am being pretty diligent about getting these edges to lay, especially if you get them down into a lower area rather than trying to stick them up onto the top of a high spot. Get those stuck down. And we'll do the same on the other side. Don't forget to keep it covered up real nice. Come through here. Second to glue, or dry, I mean. Started. Find a place to use these edges. Try to realize I'm making a unique area here between this texture and this texture. I want to be conscious of that, so we don't get all done and have 3 more smooth lines up and down the sides of these, because those are where the seams are. Even if the paper is blended well, but the texture changes in those areas. In fact, even after the paper is blended, or paper's attached to it, the other edge, I might take the whole thing as a group and try to maybe jostle it a little bit to disrupt the visual appearance of that area, to make it all kind of disappear if I can. This here and that. And I'll be here with the staples and stuff too. Oops. Just going to be aware of. Be careful not to get it to rip. But and the other thing I'm doing is down here at the end, when I'm satisfied, making sure it's nice and stuck. I'm going to get my glue. Come on around to the bottom of the end. Making sure that this is sitting tightly down to that vertical edge of the plywood surface that we have been trying to preserve through all of the different steps, because that's where everything's going to attach. Now I want to trim this paper off of here the way I trimmed the felt. Now, this is a potential failure zone for both the felt and the paper to get caught, ripped, hooked. During the show, obviously, would be awful, but just over time, too, I'm seeing the potential for that. So here's an area of felt that needs to be trimmed a little bit better. But you can see that I've done the rest of the way around here. So I've used gaff tape. It's currently covered in shit. And when I get started, a few inches past the actual edge of the paper, and I'm about half on, half off, and I'm making sure that I'm not traveling too far before I've stuck it down to this contour, so it's not always in tension, trying to lift off of that shape. Just sticking this around. Just professional taping skills. I think I've said before, when I was a kid, I was always in trouble for messing with the good tape, so this is where I get to do it now. I can do whatever I want. And I'm cutting this every 2 inches or so. So that it'll do this curve. I'm also right in the middle of the low point. Every one of these low points I'm trying to be in. If you leave a tab there, it's going to fight you. If you put a slice at the low point, it'll help you do that corner. So every 2 inches or so, and then I'm working from the low points out. So I'll start there, push every one of these down, and I'll leave the high, and I'll push the other lower pieces down, just as a best practice. And then I'll put the high down on top, because he's going to overlap either one as a result of that shape. And then I'll smooth, do the same thing over here, all the way up to the high point, and I'll come back out and work my way up to that again, to here and there. And then, now that edge has got a really nice substrate. Again, it's like a fabric and a tape and an adhesion and a glue and a staple and a felt and a paper, and everything's all wrapped up real nice and tight. And when I paint everything here, we're going to contribute some structural integrity to this paper. We're going to homogenize all the paper. We're going to lock in the forms that we may finish and tease out a little bit, and just encourage this, like this area here, to be good, and staple it, and encourage this here to sit down and staple it. And we'll just very carefully just move our way along kind of quickly. And I'll use a whacker tacker rather than a hand-operated staple gun, but we'll just get this just so, and we'll just pow pow and just commit. Maybe this is a bit much. Maybe that's better. Pow pow with some staples, right? And then the last thing we'll do is we'll spray a coat of heavy black paint on this whole thing. Obviously, these areas will need a little piece there. We'll trim the top. So that's getting the paper texture on those trees. Thanks for watching. We'll see you. Okay, I got a coat of black on most of what I could reach here. I haven't rolled it over to that last little bit that's on the bottom, but I took the opportunity to get some in these areas and stuff here. Just in the future, if you're charging for stuff, if I'm renting these out, it's just more, it seems to me, more professional. Things are blacked out completely. It just seems, just has a finer finish. There's some areas in here where I can't easily get drilled down in with the spray gun without loading up a bunch of extra wet paint and compromising it further. So I'll just get those later. I got the fan running now to try and accelerate the drying, and this is going to contribute some stiffness and lock in some of these shapes, but I expect for it to be able to squish it a little bit, especially when I'm dry brushing. Now, instead of brushing, I'm going to roll this, and I'm going to roll it with some texture sponge rollers also. So it'll be a dry texture roller color that I'm rolling up and down on this thing vertically with. And so not only am I not going to get into the lowest areas that will be black, the texture of the roller is going to contribute splotchiness and further add texture to this whole thing. So I think a variety of angles of attack with the different textures and using color here. But again, the point that I I'm always trying to make doing things like this is that this texture will make painting this thing quick and easy. There's so much surface area here. It was 3 long pieces of paper that accelerated the coverage. It'll be 5, 6, 7, 8, 10 strips to go around these bigger trees, but it's certainly faster than illustrating tree bark onto all of that surface area. That's just, you know, people that do it all the time, there's a way to break that out and make it go quickly and stuff too, but I can't be everywhere at once here. And scenic painting is another can of worms that you want to spend all kinds of time with. The hassle with that is you can't back up far enough to look at it until you do so, and then you walk back in and do some more painting, and then you back up again. And in doing it like this, it's just faster. The texture is working for us. The dry brush techniques are going to make it pop, and we haven't got to do illustrating. Same with this roof section that's ready to go up and hang. This is the tower roof. We're going to use cardboard shingles where we pull the paper off of one side and put them on just like you would shingles, but in the end we won't have to illustrate shingles. And we do that in a few different ways around here to sort of speed things up. Also brick, rather than painting the brick color and brushing up the lines of grout, we'll paint the grout color and then pick sponges or stamps, otherwise create a stamp of multiple bricks or just one or what have you, with some chalk lines or pencil for guidance. But we'll stamp out the brick with the sponge, and it's just a better look when you're all done than the illustration. It's just really hard to illustrate and have it look good out there in the house. It's just a big canvas around up here. So, all right, we'll come back and see what that looks like once it's standing and we get some dry brush on there.